So I want to talk about how I plan out my week from start to finish, but covering the science and philosophy behind the decisions I make through periodization. I will be going through Morgan because it is the best app for me, but the philosophy behind the decisions can be done with any calendar or no calendar at all. First is the concept of overreaching, doing something that is difficult but not too difficult. A calendar and task app fundamentally helps us manage our energy throughout the day. Although we get more sleepy as the day goes on, that doesn't mean our energy dips as the day goes on. When you eat, if you nap, what you do, how hard you work, all changes how much energy your body has to work with. We can physically push our bodies doing more reps, more sets, more intensity, more time under tension, and all those fun things. Or mentally, more questions, harder questions, difficult theories, complex ideas, and all that fun stuff. But overreaching can be functional, i.e., good, or non-functional, i.e. not so good. When we are physically or mentally fatigued, we need to rest and recover. If the overreaching recovers during rest, then our performance increases next time. If it doesn't recover, then our performance doesn't increase, potentially being worse for longer because of the longer recovery time. A hard gym session or complex learning session can mentally or physically drain you more than something a little easier. This balance of energy availability is what I consider when I plan out my day, week, month, year, but mainly my day. I look at the rest and recovery times, normally eating times, but also times blocked out for recovery, like time with the family. For me, that's watching TV, but for others, that might not be rest and recovery time. Then I look at my sessions. I can do one session before lunch, fit in 2 sessions between lunch and dinner, and then normally 1 session after dinner on most days. A session to me is about a 2-hour block, and I make sure there is a rest period between the 2 midday sessions. The idea during the day is to avoid non-functional overreaching, especially if my energy is low beforehand, because I don't want to become overtrained. In the strength and conditioning literature, the relative energy deficiency syndrome and overtraining syndrome are spoken about lots with characteristics that mimic elements of burnout. So even though I may have planned out my day, if the energy isn't there, I alter the sessions. Managing your energy is certainly a skill on its own because it requires interoceptive accuracy, your ability to take internal signals and work out how you are feeling. You may feel bad, but still be able to perform well, or you may feel good, but not be able to perform well. What I do to check my available energy for a task is to do a warm-up. I know it sounds odd for mental skills, but a warm-up is for preparing the body for performance, raising heart rate, blood pressure, warming muscles, etc. But we can do the same for mental tasks. Just like you wouldn't play darts to warm up for football, I wouldn't watch TV to warm up for studying, unless there was some related program. A warm-up for learning cognitive load theory might start with asking questions about distractions while learning, bad teaching environments, and stories that can relate to those things. Searching for videos, articles, blogs about bad teachers, good learners, expertise, something that warms my mind to the idea of cognitive load theory. When I find a story, paper, question that is interesting, I then look to relate the thing to what I currently know about cognitive load theory, which triggers the session to start. I'd find a story, question, or piece of content that could relate to what I'm looking to study. I don't put a minimum time on a session because, like in physical training, it could be a really intense session that is quite short. So, high volume of research, lots of reps of writing, lots of sets of consumption, whatever that may look like for that session. However, I do put a maximum time for a session at around 2 hours. Although the energy may still be there to keep me going, the body and brain still needs to recover from the stress. I don't have to take the break, but it gives me a reminder to reflect on how I'm feeling and how much energy I still have, potentially. RPE, or rate of perceived exertion, is something used in the gym to measure how difficult a set or session felt. That is essentially what I do in the break. Perceive the energy exerted and gauge how much I might have left. Because perception is used instead of a measurable metric like time, it changes depending on how I felt to start with. Some days are just better than others. This gauge check helps me avoid non-functional overreaching. The max time also allows me to step back and reflect on what else I should or could be doing during the day to avoid me working through time that was meant for something else. Now, finishing a session could be deciding to just reschedule it, or work for 2+ hours on it. Just because it was planned doesn't mean I have the energy to do it. So we are warming up, looking to functionally overreach in our sessions, and now we need to work out what I'm actually going to do, which is done in cycles. A microcycle is the smallest cycle, between 4 days and 3 weeks, depending on the plan. A mesocycle is next, between 2 and 8 weeks, again, depending on the plan. And the macrocycles, 6 months to 4 years, again, depending on the plan. Olympic athletes will have a 4-year macro cycle, so they peak at the Olympics, but might have other peaks at the end of mesocycles through the different seasons. Then microcycles for focused blocks of training. This is a searchable image of a periodization plan and a fairly easy one to decode, but as you can see, a full macrocycle being shown with 15 mesocycles and 52 microcycles. They are peaking 10 at the same time of competition, with intensity and volume of sessions changing according to the energy available to them, leaving them enough energy to peak at the right time. For real planning enthusiasts, it's great fun, but for most, it's way overboard. I use the year as a macrocycle, exams or big projects as the goals or competition, but most of my time is focused on mesocycle management or months. Having lots of busy months in a row doesn't allow for rest and recovery. So I plan out my year like I would my months, weeks, and days considering energy availability. My main goals right now are around research and sharing it. My content is obviously the sharing part of it, so if I go back in months, you can see there was less sharing done compared to this month. But that is when I was researching, so I balanced my energy depending on the goal peaks. This month being a sharing peak. Something I want to note here is everyone's month energy will be different. Some people may have lots of energy at the beginning of the month, others at the end of the month. This could be due to week-by-week factors, environmental factors at work or school, or from biological factors. Females will know more than me about that. Overplanning and micromanaging days is something I fell deep into, and it might work for some people, but it was way too regimented for me, which is why I look at the time blocks as sessions instead. Sticking with the gym analogy, you could plan every exercise, set, rep, intensity, duration with biomechanic movement analysis and all the science under the sun to make it the most effective program in the world. But if you don't do it, it's useless. My calendar shows me the sessions. One of the many features I love about Morgan is I can have tasks in there as well for all the in-between session things like drinking water, answering emails, and taking medication. But the bulk of the session stuff is worked out in the session. If the session is for reading, I go to Zotero and warm up something to read. If the session is writing, I go to Obsidian and warm up something about writing. If the session is something to do with a video, I will go to the appropriate environment. DaVinci for editing, Streamlabs for recording, you get the point. I don't worry about the specifics of the session until I've done the session warm-up and decided to actually do the session in the first place. Now, there are some tasks that I would call a necessary evil. When I was training athletes, it was normally stretching or mobility work. Things they should do but don't want to do. Because of lots of physical development science and the fact they were normally lower effort than other tasks we did in the gym, we did them as a cool down. I do the same for most necessary evil tasks that are not so high in effort. Emails I do after my daily journal. I talk about anything that is on my mind to a camera and share it with my patrons. It could be business, research, life, questions, anything like that, which is normally high mental effort in the morning, but I enjoy it, so I'm motivated to start it. And I use my emails as a cool down before the first main warm-up session of the day. Taxes are another example that are more high in effort, that I do in sections. The first part is a cool down on one day, the next session done on a different day. So it gets done on time because I've periodized the task over different cooldown sessions in my macro planning. You don't have to do a cooldown, but I find them easy to slot in after a session before a rest period. When it comes to studying or learning something I know I need or should know, but don't want to do, I again look at the warm-up, but change it from relating it into the topic, and start by looking at the topic, but finding why, or how I could care about the thing. A recent example for me was the data view plugin in Obsidian. I thought I should probably learn it, but don't know code or understand where or how I would use it. I just didn't care. I looked at Notion and thought, can I do that in Obsidian? No, yes. Oh, I can do that. How can I change that? What can I do with that? Which has evolved into putting it into my system and is a template I will share sometime in the future. It sounds obvious, but I try and find a reason to care, and I know that is very hard. There is no easy answer I have found to care about something you otherwise wouldn't. Feel free to share your methods in the comment section below, but my go-to method is to find a use for it somehow. There are other principles of periodization I apply to my planning that are very nuanced and go deep into the theory and the science and the philosophy, but if that is something you're interested in, let me know in the comment section below. But that is me. How do you do it?